Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So, in case you don't know the story of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, graphic novel, came out in 2010, this movie came out. Follows Scott Pilgrim, who lives in Toronto, Canada. He falls in love with Ramona Flowers, and she's way better than his current girlfriend, called Knives, so he decides to go after this Ramona Flowers. However, in order to date Ramona Flowers, he must defeat her 7 evil exes. So, big movie nowadays, but when it came out, this movie was not very popular. Got very poor box office return, didn't make much money. Probably they were intending on starting a franchise with this movie, if I had to guess. I don't really know how the graphic novel ends. This is directed by Edgar Wright, very talented filmmaker. I've reviewed Shaun of the Dead on this channel before, which is a movie I really like. He's also made Hot Fuzz. He's made The World's End and Baby Driver. And this movie came out, it showed a bit of a different side to Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright at the time was known as being a comedic director, and this movie, while it is funny, is more of an action movie. It incorporates action and romance pretty well, in my opinion. I'm gonna start off with, the biggest negative in this film. I like this movie, don't get me wrong. There's just one thing I really can't get over in this movie. I feel like the character of Scott Pilgrim is such a dick, which I don't mind. You can make your character a dick. It doesn't really matter to me. I watch movies where the main character is a dick all the time, but I feel like the movie is not aware that this character is a dick. Going out with a high school girl, which is weird enough on its own, but also he doesn't know how to dump her. He's a bit of a dweeb when it comes to that, just break up with her. But instead he just starts seeing Ramona Flowers behind her back, and I feel like the ending, everyone gets along. It's just too much of a happy ending, considering that he's been a dick to Knives the whole time. Which, don't get me wrong, I think Knives is annoying in the movie, not the real person. I'm sure she's nice. My friend once took an Uber, and the Uber driver was like, my daughter's an actress. She's Knives in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Which is pretty cool, small world, I guess. And me and my friend do live in Canada, so I guess there's that too going for us. But yeah, I wanted Scott Pilgrim to have to deal with his fate, deal with his decisions a bit more in this movie. Maybe he ends up with Ramona, but ends up breaking Knives' heart, and she gives him shit for it, and he comes to the realization, yeah, that was a bit of a dick move. He never really has fate judge him for his bad decisions. Again, I don't mind there being a character who's a dick, but the point I'm getting is that they don't acknowledge he's a dick. So it's almost like you watch this movie and you're like, is this movie kind of just saying this behavior is normal? If you are going to go in the direction where, yes, this character is a dick, maybe just dial it up a tiny bit more. Don't make him murder children or anything, but maybe just, just as it is, he was a bit of a dweeb and he never got the fate he deserved. That's the only complaint I really have with the movie, but it's a pretty big complaint, I would say, that I didn't necessarily like the main character. And I think Michael Cera wasn't a really good fit. Michael Cera is known for being a dweeb character, and in here he's doing action sequences and all, but he still kind of has that, hi guys, voice. So I never bought the fact that he can take down a ton of people. Other than that, this movie has style. If you're a pop culture junkie, if you like video games, if you like movies, pop culture, comic books, a lot of references going on here, lot of visual flair. I remember seeing this the first time. I had never seen anything like this. It really felt like I was watching a breath of fresh air movie. Stuff like when he goes to the bathroom, he has a little pee meter, the pee meter goes down, breaking the fourth wall, changes an aspect ratio, and even the action sequences in this movie are really fantastic, and they really had me on the edge of my seat. And the whole premise behind the movie is so goofy, I love it too. Each evil ex is given such a weird personality. You have Chris Evans, for example, who's playing a famous actor, and he's like a jock dick. You have people like Brendan Routh, who's playing a vegan, and he's like a pretentious vegan. Even Matthew Patel, he's my favorite one. He's the first one, and he's just flat out weird. He's like an Indian dude who wears mascara. All of the characters in here are really flashy, and not even just the evil exes, the supporting cast as well. His roommate, played by, I can't remember his name, Macaulay Culkin's brother, he has a lot of jokes there. Aubrey Plaza plays a friend of Scott Pilgrim who is always talking shit. She's got the RBF going on. You don't see movies like this made that often. And this movie was 10 years ago, and I remember around the period of 2005 to 2010, I feel like comic books movies were such a new genre that people were just kind of testing whatever worked because they didn't really have a plan. So you had movies like this, you had Sin City, you had Watchmen, and these were all comic book movies that I feel like don't really get made nowadays. Who knows, maybe with like the release of Joker, there can be an opening for movies like this. But yeah, just like weird comic book movies that had that certain style to them. Like Sin City, I remember watching that. I was like, wow, that was really something new. And I feel like since they did crack the code of comic book movies with the Marvel movies and the DC movies, since they have cracked the code, there's less new stuff like Scott Pilgrim versus the World coming out. But yeah, this movie was definitely different. And it's unfortunate it didn't make its money back, because I would have liked to see like crazy shit like this come out more often. And I kind of feel bad for Edgar Wright, because he's such an original voice, but I feel like he keeps getting like himself into bad situations. So he got success with Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End. I think Baby Driver made okay money at the box office, just not astounding, and he wanted that to be a big hit. This movie tanked at the box office because I feel like it was poorly marketed. Then you have the situation like the Ant-Man situation where he has a really creative idea, but Marvel fires him. And it's just like, in the past decade, I feel like Edgar Wright could have made so much more. He's only made like 2 movies in the last decade, which is unfortunate because he's so creative. And he does have Last Night in Soho coming out this year, which I'm really excited for. Edgar Wright, my advice to you is, stay out of the studio system as much as possible. Make your own shit. Movies like Shaun of the Dead, The World's End, stuff like that. Really creative, very funny. And you don't have to get any repercussions from it because you're working with a small budget. Don't collaborate with Disney anymore. Disney does not deserve Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright is above Disney. That Ant-Man movie, by the way, I'm going to stop talking about Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I'm going to talk about Ant-Man. The cool stuff that is in the Ant-Man movie, guaranteed all Edgar Wright. Like the part where Ant-Man is like tiny and he's like hanging on to the record player and stuff like that. Guaranteed, in my opinion, that's all Edgar Wright. I might be biased because I like the guy, but you can kind of tell. But anyway, back to Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I like this movie a lot. I don't even view it as a romantic movie, though. It is technically a romantic movie, but to me, if you call Scott Pilgrim vs. the World a romantic movie, it's kind of like saying Mario Bros. Is like a romantic video game. Like, sure, you're defeating Bowser in order to get the princess, but I wouldn't call Mario romantic. Like, it's not like I watch Mario Bros. And I'm like, oh, it's so dreamy. It's kind of the same thing with this. The whole catalyst is that he's trying to get the girl, but it's more about defeating the 7 bosses, get to the final boss, get the girl. It has a very Mario structure to it, which was intentional. It's a parody of video games, or an homage to video games, so it borrows a lot of the same structure. But yeah, I like this movie a lot. Gained a cult following, but it was just a little too late. I don't see them doing anything with this franchise anymore. If you guys haven't seen many films by Edgar Wright, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End, watch those 3 movies, you won't be disappointed. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is just below that, to me, below those 3 movies, but it's above Baby Driver. So, yeah. I think Edgar Wright works the best when he does more straight comedy with, like, genre elements thrown into there, versus action films like Baby Driver and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. maybe he needs that Simon Pegg by his side. Not saying that I don't like this movie. This is a very competently made movie. If I had to give another criticism, I feel like the beginning of this movie is a little slow. And again, if maybe I liked the character of Scott Pilgrim a bit more, I'd be more forgiving. But I just didn't care for that character. He was a bit of a D-bag. But it is what it is. Decent movie. Placing it on the love meter, I'd give it an 80% on the love meter. Maybe a 70%. Not too sure. Probably 70%. 70% on the love meter. Yeah.
Scott Pilgrim versus the world.
Maybe next time we don't date the girl with 11 evil ex-boyfriends.
7.
Oh, that's not that bad.